Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny. On the day of my graduation, I was looking around, and it not only hit me that I was finally out of high school and that I was going to go to college, but that I'll probably never have to see these people ever again. And my high school, each grade had about 250 people. And as I looked around, I was wondering how many people would I actually talk to a few years from now. And now looking back, after 1 year of college is almost ending, the number hits a mere 10. And so this made me wonder, even though I do continue to have those people in my contacts and my social media, is it really necessary to keep these superficial relationships alive? And this is when the idea of the relationship diet kicks in. Before we talk about the relationship diet, it is important to understand the 3 types of friendship that exist. And as Aristotle talks about, friendship with utility, which is basically you're getting something in return. You're profiting from that relationship. Mostly it is done through classmates or business partners. Similarly, it's friendship of pleasure, where you're getting enjoyment and it's to please yourself rather than to please the other person. Things can include people you share hobbies with, drinking buddies, and the one that we all seem to strive for is friendship of the good, which is when you're trying to benefit each other. And it combines both aspects, and that you're getting something useful from for each other, as well as pleasing one another. And from these friendships and the bonds and the connections we make from day to day, it is often viewed in this modern society to be tiring, a chore, cumbersome, and that is reflected well in this chart, in that when asked a question, have you ever felt tiredness from relationships in any way? This was asked to 2,526 adult male and female people in Korea. 61% replied sometimes, 24% replied often, and only a mere 3% replied never. So this shows in our modern society, people are taking these interpersonal relationships as more of a chore rather than something they enjoy doing. So now introducing the idea of the relationship diet. So similar to a regular diet, it is to reduce the intake of people. And just like reducing your weight, it's like reducing the stress, reducing the mental weight that relationships are putting on yourself. So the point is to make sure that you're reducing the superficial relationships and rather working on building the real ones, such as friendship for the good. And this is done usually through several ways. One way that most people do is simply deleting the contacts of people they believe is unnecessary and unimportant in their lives. Another way is for you to act in that you delete your social media account. So you're disconnecting yourself from those you believe are unnecessary to your everyday life. And this is focusing on the idea of improving the quality of your relationship rather than the quantity of your relationships. And it is an increasingly popular phenomenon in Korea. As to this survey, have you ever tried the relationship diet? It was the same audience as the previous one, and 46%, almost half of the people replied yes. And 36% replied they want to, but they do not have the time or the effort or the energy to do so. So this shows that the Korean society, a digitalized age, we are increasingly wanting to disconnect ourselves from those that really do not give us a better benefit. We must also look at the disadvantages of doing this so-called relationship diet, as well as, so we're going to look at the pros and the cons. So the disadvantages. In a traditional mindset, people usually thought that connections is kind of like an asset. The more you have, the more potential to have valuable networks. So a lot of people believe so when they are working in terms of business. They want to know as many people as they can, so that if they need any help, if they need any marketing strategies, they can reach out very easily to a bigger audience. And also some people, more like students, believe that if they really do this relationship diet, they're scared that the harsh reality is that they really have no real friends. So they're afraid of isolation, of being alone at the end of this process. And the second one is unnecessary stress. People believe that, there are some people who believe that life should just take its course, and that they don't want to go through the unnecessary stress of filtering through the people, filtering through different connections that they have, and eventually finding their own little group of real friends. So they'd rather just settle and rather just be friends with everyone, and eventually life will take them to a place where they have happy friends and a comfortable spot in their life. However, I want to look at the advantages of a relationship diet. The first one is related to an important factor of our life, health, and that there has been multiple studies, such as in the Computers and Human Behavior, a peer-reviewed science journal. They did a study and found out that the more friends you have on Facebook, the more likely you're to develop a respiratory infection. This may seem very odd at first, in that how is the connection made? But it's the link that the more friends you have, the more anxious you become when you enter the internet world, a digitalized world. And so with this anxiety kicking in, it is going to impact your health negatively. And that led to a very specific result, respiratory infection. But there has been other mental illnesses that have been very closely linked to trying to build friendships online and trying to maintain those friendships. But in reality, they're very superficial and very hard to reach a very strong connection with. The second part is emphasizing meaningful connections. The important part about this is our time is very limited, and the energy we have on a day-to-day basis is also very limited. So if we cut down the people that we're trying to spread our energy and our time to, it makes it easier for us to focus on the meaningful relationships and to pour more dedication and time and effort into those, making it eventually stronger and better connections between those that really matter. After the process of a relationship diet, and a very important thing to do is maintaining those that you are left with, the small pool that you're left with, or if you have a problem with cutting people out of your life entirely, one thing you can do is convert the superficial into a more meaningful and powerful relationship. And there are several ways to maintain relationships. One way that I find very interesting is you have to make sure that you realize that the person that you're interacting with are also humans that have their own emotions. So don't just text them, call them, reach out to them when you need something. Just pick a random day when you find, oh, I wonder how they're doing. That is one way to make them realize that you actually care and that you're trying to make an effort and an impact. And that way you're going to make friends that are going to be friendship of the good rather than those of utility and pleasure. So overall, I just want to say that in our world today, it is very hard to find those that you truly connect with, but one way to do this is through the relationship diet. So if you cannot go on other diets like more health related, one thing that I recommend is go on the relationship diet. Work on your mental health before your physical health, and that way that can improve your life overall. Thank you for listening. Now I'd like to move on to the discussion part of this TED Talk. The first thing is I want to do a simulation of the relationship diet. So can you guys all take out your phones?